The emergency alarm echoed through the massive space station called Nexus Prime. Representatives from 12 different alien species rushed into the main council chamber, their faces showing fear and worry. The lights flickered as another report came in from the outer systems. Commander Jake Morrison sat at the human diplomatic table, watching the chaos unfold around him. He had been Earth's representative to the Galactic Coalition for 5 years now, but he had never seen the alien leaders this scared. The insect-like Kythera were clicking their mandibles nervously, while the crystal beings called Vorthan flashed red warning colors across their transparent bodies. Admiral Zexhai, a massive reptilian creature from the Saurian Empire, stood at the center of the room. His scales were dark green, almost black, and his yellow eyes glowed with anger and desperation. He was nearly 8 feet tall and commanded respect from every species in the coalition. 3 more systems have fallen, Admiral Zexhai announced, his deep voice carrying across the silent chamber. The Devourers have consumed everything in the Kappa sector. Planets, moons, space stations, even the asteroids. Nothing remains but empty space and their growing fleet. Jake leaned forward in his chair. The Devourers were an ancient enemy that the Coalition had hoped would never wake up. They were machines, built by some long-dead race, designed to consume matter and turn it into more war machines. For thousands of years, they had slept in the dark spaces between galaxies. Now they were awake and hungry. "How many ships do they have now?" asked General Kava, a blue-skinned humanoid from the Centauri Republic. "Our scouts estimate over 10,000 vessels," Admiral Zexhai replied. "And the number grows every day. Every planet they consume gives them materials to build more ships, more weapons, more soldiers." The chamber erupted in worried chatter. 12 different languages filled the air as species discussed their options in hushed tones. Jake understood most of them through his translator device, and none of the conversations sounded hopeful. Dr. Yalna, the chief scientist from the Peaceful Ethereal Collective, raised one of her 4 arms. "Admiral, our computer models show that at their current rate of expansion, the Devourers will reach the inner systems within 2 years. Our combined fleets cannot stop them through conventional warfare. Which brings us to why we are here," Admiral Zexhai said, slamming his clawed fist on the metal table. "We need a new approach. We need soldiers who can board their ships, fight in their corridors, and destroy them from the inside." Jake raised an eyebrow. In all his time with the Coalition, they had never asked for ground troops or boarding parties. Their military doctrine focused on long-range space battles between massive fleets. "The problem is simple," continued the Admiral.
"Our species are not suited for this type of combat."
"The Methani cannot survive in the atmosphere inside Devourer ships. The Ethereals have never trained for close combat. The Kythera work as a hive mind and cannot operate independently in small teams. What about your own people?" Jake asked, gesturing toward the Saurian Admiral. Admiral Zexhai's scales darkened with embarrassment. "We are strong and fierce warriors, but we are too large for the narrow corridors inside enemy ships. Our movements are too slow for the quick strikes needed in boarding actions." The chamber fell silent as the representatives considered their options. Jake could see the desperation in their alien faces. These were proud species with powerful space fleets, but they had never developed the specialized skills needed for ship-to-ship boarding combat. "We have studied the military histories of all Coalition species," said Dr. Venth, a tall, thin humanoid with gray skin. "Only one race has consistently demonstrated excellence in boarding actions, close-quarters combat, and the individual initiative required for small unit operations." All eyes turned to Jake Morrison. He felt the weight of their stares and slowly stood up from his chair. "You want human soldiers," Jake said. It was not a question. "Yes," Admiral Zexhai replied. "Earth's military reputation is well known throughout the galaxy. Your people have fought wars on land, sea, air, and space. You understand individual combat, squad tactics, and the art of warfare in confined spaces." Jake nodded slowly. He had expected this moment would come eventually. Humanity had joined the Galactic Coalition only 20 years ago, but their military capabilities had quickly gained respect among the alien species. "What exactly are you asking for?" Jake inquired. "We need ground troops," said General Kava. "Marines trained in zero-gravity combat. Soldiers who can breach enemy ships, fight through their defenses, and destroy critical systems from the inside. We need warriors who can think independently and adapt to changing situations," added Dr. Yalna. "We need fighters who are not afraid to face an enemy that has consumed entire worlds." Admiral HFY concluded. Jake looked around the chamber at the desperate alien faces. He understood their request, but he also knew that Earth's military leaders would need to make the final decision. I will need to contact my government, Jake said. This is not a decision I can make alone. Of course, Admiral HFY replied. But please, Commander Morrison, time is not on our side. Every day we delay gives the Devourers more time to grow stronger. Jake activated his personal communicator and sent an encrypted message back to Earth. Within hours, he would be speaking with Fleet Admiral Lisa Carter and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The request was simple. Enough. The Coalition wanted human soldiers to board enemy ships and destroy them from within. But Jake had worked with the Coalition long enough to know that simple requests often had complicated answers. Earth's military doctrine had evolved far beyond what the alien species understood. The Coalition was asking for soldiers, but they were thinking in terms of traditional ground troops with rifles and armor. Jake suspected that Earth's response would surprise them. As the emergency session continued, more reports arrived from the front lines. The Devourers had accelerated their advance, consuming 2 more systems in just the past day. Their mechanical ships moved with ruthless efficiency, stripping planets bare and converting the raw materials into more war machines. The Coalition species had powerful space fleets with advanced weapons and strong shields, but they fought wars like gentlemen. They formed battle lines, exchanged fire at long range, and followed ancient codes of honor even against mechanical enemies. The Devourers followed no such codes. They swarmed enemy fleets, used overwhelming numbers, and showed no mercy to defeated opponents. Traditional Coalition tactics were proving useless against an enemy that fought to consume rather than to conquer. Jake understood that this war would require a different approach entirely. The Coalition needed someone who could fight dirty, think creatively, and win at any cost. They needed humans. But more specifically, Jake realized, they needed the kind of humans who had spent decades preparing for exactly this type of unconventional warfare. Earth had been developing specialized military units for situations that other species could not even imagine. The emergency session continued through the night, as more bad news arrived from the outer systems. By morning, Jake had his orders from Earth. Admiral Carter's response was brief but clear. Tell them we will send soldiers, but not the kind they expect. 3 weeks later, Admiral HFY stood on the observation deck of Staging Point Omega, a hastily built military base floating in the dark space between star systems. Coalition ships filled the area around the station, their crews preparing for the desperate battle ahead. The Admiral checked his chronometer again. The human transports should arrive within the hour. He imagined massive cargo ships filled with armored Marines carrying thousands of soldiers ready to board Devourer vessels and fight in their mechanical corridors. A junior officer approached with a data pad. Sir, we are detecting ships dropping out of hyperspace. The humans have arrived. Admiral HFY turned to watch the arrival, but what he saw made his scales shift to a confused gray color. Instead of the expected transport ships, sleek black vessels emerged from the bright flashes of hyperspace. They moved with predatory grace, their hulls reflecting the distant stars like hunting animals stalking through the void. Those are not transport ships, Admiral HFY muttered to himself. Dr. Kayla Venth, the Coalition's chief tactical analyst, joined him at the observation window. Her pale blue skin showed concern as she studied the approaching vessels. Admiral, those appear to be warships, she said, consulting her scanner readings, but they do not match any known human fleet design in our databases. The lead vessel was larger than a fighter, but smaller than a cruiser. Its black hull was covered with weapon systems that looked nothing like standard Coalition armaments. Strange devices protruded from its sides, and its shape seemed designed for speed rather than durability. Admiral HFY activated his communication system. Unknown human vessels, this is Admiral HFY of the Galactic Coalition. Please identify yourselves and state your purpose. The response came immediately. A holographic image appeared on the command deck, showing a human male in his 40s wearing a military uniform with unfamiliar insignia. His face was weathered and serious, with gray eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Admiral HFY, this is Captain Alex Turner commanding the EDS Nightfall. I am here with the 7th Void Fleet Squadron reporting for duty as requested. Admiral HFY blinked his large yellow eyes in confusion. Captain Turner, we requested ground forces for boarding operations. These appear to be warships. Captain Turner smiled slightly, but there was no humor in his expression. Sir, with all due respect, you requested soldiers. These are our soldiers. The hologram expanded to show Captain Turner's bridge. Admiral HFY could see other humans moving efficiently between control stations. A young woman with short brown hair worked at a navigation console, while a bearded man monitored weapon systems. Near the back of the bridge, a woman in engineering coveralls adjusted power settings on a complex control panel. Allow me to introduce my crew, Captain Turner said. Navigation Officer Jenny Walsh, Weapons Specialist Carl Johnson, Engineering Chief Paula Martinez, Communications Officer Steve Baker, and my Executive Officer, Lieutenant Commander Rachel Stone. Each crew member nodded politely but continued working at their stations. Admiral HFY noticed that there were only 6 humans visible on the bridge, far fewer than the massive crews that operated Coalition warships. Captain Turner, Admiral HFY said carefully, "How many troops are you transporting?" "Sir, each Void Fleet vessel carries a crew of 30. We are not transporting troops. We are the troops." Dr. Venth leaned closer to the communication screen. "Captain, I am confused. You appear to be naval personnel operating a warship. We requested soldiers for boarding actions and close quarters combat." Lieutenant Commander Rachel Stone stepped forward. She was a woman in her 30s with blonde hair and intense green eyes. "Doctor, we are soldiers. We just fight differently than you might expect." Captain Turner gestured to his crew. "Admiral, your people asked Earth for soldiers who could board enemy ships, fight in confined spaces, and destroy targets from within. We are exactly what you requested." "But you are operating a warship," Admiral HFY protested. "No, sir. We are operating a weapon. The ship is our rifle, the crew is our squad, and the enemy vessels are our targets." Admiral HFY's scales shifted to deeper shades of confusion. In Coalition military doctrine, ships were vehicles that carried soldiers to battle. The idea of the ship itself being a weapon wielded by soldier sailors was completely foreign to his understanding. Communications Officer Steve Baker spoke up from his station. "Sir, we have 11 other Void Fleet vessels in formation. All crews are ready for operational briefing." Captain Turner nodded. "Admiral HFY, permission to come aboard your command station for a full tactical briefing. I think it would be easier to explain our capabilities in person." 20 minutes later, Captain Turner materialized in the Coalition Command Center via transport beam. He was smaller than Admiral HFY had expected, standing only about 6 feet tall with a lean build. But there was something in his posture and movements that suggested deadly competence. Behind him came Lieutenant Commander Stone and Engineering Chief Martinez. The 3 humans looked around the massive command center with professional interest, taking note of the Coalition's equipment and procedures. "Impressive facility," Captain Turner commented. "Your logistics and command capabilities are excellent." "Thank you," Admiral HFY replied. "Now, Captain, please explain exactly what these Void Fleet vessels are designed to do." Turner approached the main tactical display, which showed the current disposition of Coalition and Devourer forces. "Admiral, your traditional naval doctrine focuses on fleet engagements. Large ships form battle lines and exchange fire until one side retreats or is destroyed. Yes, this is how space warfare has always been conducted. But the Devourers do not fight that way. They swarm, they overwhelm through numbers, and they adapt their tactics based on what they learn from each battle." Turner highlighted several recent Devourer victories on the display. "Your losses are heavy because you're fighting a fair fight." Dr. Venth frowned. "What do you mean by a fair fight?" Lieutenant Commander Stone answered. "You announce your presence, you form predictable battle formations, and you engage the enemy at ranges where they can shoot back effectively." "How else would one conduct warfare?" asked Admiral HFY. Captain Turner's smile became predatory. "You fight dirty. You cheat. You hit them where they do not expect it, when they do not expect it, in ways they cannot counter." Engineering Chief Martinez activated a portable holographic projector, showing detailed schematics of a Devourer vessel. "Admiral, these enemy ships are heavily armored on the outside but vulnerable to internal damage. Their command systems are centralized, making them susceptible to precision strikes. Traditional fleet engagement would require massive firepower to penetrate their armor," Turner continued. "But a small, fast vessel with specialized equipment can slip past their defenses, dock internally, and disable their critical systems. Admiral HFY studied the human ship schematics that appeared on the display. The Void Fleet vessels were equipped with advanced stealth systems, specialized docking equipment, and weapons designed for surgical strikes rather than overwhelming firepower. "You are describing boarding actions," the Admiral said. "Yes, sir, but not in the way you are thinking. We do not send soldiers onto enemy ships. We take our entire ship onto enemy ships." Dr. Venth looked confused. "How is that possible?" Turner gestured to Martinez, who expanded the holographic display to show the Void Fleet docking system. "Our ships are equipped with molecular bore docks. We can cut through enemy hull armor and establish a sealed connection to their internal spaces. Once docked, we operate inside their ship while maintaining our own vessel as a base of operations," Stone added. "We have mobility, firepower, and life support that traditional boarding parties lack." Admiral HFY was beginning to understand. "So your ships are both the transport and the weapon." "Exactly. One Void Fleet vessel can disable a Devourer dreadnought that would require 50 Coalition ships to destroy through conventional means." The implications were staggering. If the humans were correct, their small squadron could potentially accomplish what entire Coalition fleets could not. "Captain Turner," Admiral HFY said slowly, "are you prepared to demonstrate these capabilities?" Turner's expression became deadly serious. "Admiral, we have been preparing for this war for 20 years. My crews have trained for exactly this type of enemy. We are not just prepared to demonstrate our capabilities. What are you saying? We are ready to end this war." The demonstration began at dawn in the Kepler 442 system, where a massive Devourer scout ship drifted near a dying red star. The mechanical vessel was 3 miles long and bristled with weapon systems, its dark metal hull scarred from countless battles. Coalition intelligence had confirmed it was derelict, abandoned after taking damage in a previous engagement, but its automated systems were still active. Admiral HFY watched from the bridge of his command cruiser, positioned at a safe distance from the target. Around him, Coalition observers from 6 different species monitored their instruments with nervous anticipation. They had never seen human military doctrine in action. "All stations report ready," announced Dr. Kayla Venth, adjusting her scanner settings. "The target vessel shows no life signs but maintains active defensive systems." On the main display screen, the sleek form of EDS Nightfall approached the Devourer ship. Captain Turner's voice crackled over the communication system, calm and professional. "Beginning approach vector. Jenny, bring us in on the shadow side, using the star's radiation to mask our signature." Navigator Jenny Walsh responded from her station aboard Nightfall. "Aye, sir, shadow approach locked in. Stealth systems are online." Admiral HFY leaned forward as the human ship seemed to vanish from his sensors. One moment it was visible on the tactical display, the next it had simply disappeared. "Impossible," whispered Commander Thex, a crystalline officer whose body flashed confused colors. "Our sensors should be able to track any vessel at this range." Dr. Venth checked her instruments again. "Sir, I am reading no energy signatures from the human ship. It is as if it no longer exists." But the nightfall was very much real. Inside the sleek vessel, Captain Turner's crew worked with practiced efficiency. The bridge was dimly lit, bathed in red light that would not interfere with their night vision during boarding operations. "No detection from the target," reported weapons specialist Carl Johnson, monitoring the Devourer ship's sensor sweeps. "Their automated systems cannot see us." "Outstanding. Paula, prepare the boardock. I want a clean penetration on their engineering section." Engineering Chief Paula Martinez initiated the ship's most unique system. Unlike traditional docking clamps that required compatible airlocks, the boardock could cut through solid armor and establish a sealed connection anywhere on an enemy hull. "Boardock charging, sir." Molecular disruptors are online and ready. The Coalition observers watched in fascination as Nightfall extended a specialized docking tube tipped with energy projectors. Instead of seeking an existing entrance, the human ship positioned itself against the Devourer's heavily armored hull and began cutting. "Sir, we are through the outer armor," Martinez reported. "Internal atmosphere detected. Looks like a standard nitrogen-oxygen mix with trace mechanical lubricants." "Excellent. Steve, notify the squadron that we are going internal. All other ships maintain overwatch positions." Communications Officer Steve Baker nodded from his station. "Aye, sir. All Void Fleet vessels acknowledge and are standing by for support if needed." Captain Turner stood from his command chair, and moved toward the ship's armory. His boarding team consisted of himself, Martinez, Walsh, and Johnson. Unlike traditional Marines in bulky battle armor, they wore sleek environmental suits designed specifically for shipboard operations. Rachel, you have the bridge. Monitor our progress and maintain communication silence unless we signal distress. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Stone settled into the captain's chair. Understood, sir. Bridge is mine. Good hunting. The four-person team moved through Nightfall's corridors toward the docking tube. Their equipment was minimal but sophisticated. Advanced pulse weapons, electronic warfare devices, and portable cutting tools. They carried no heavy weapons or explosives that might damage systems they needed to access. The bore dock had created a sealed tunnel directly into the Devourer vessel's engineering section. Turner led his team through the connection, their movements fluid and confident. They had practiced this exact scenario hundreds of times in Earth's training facilities. Inside the enemy ship, the environment was alien and hostile. The corridors were designed for mechanical beings with sharp angles and no consideration for organic comfort. Red emergency lighting cast eerie shadows while automated systems hummed with malevolent purpose. Remember, this is a learning mission, Turner whispered into his helmet communicator. We need to understand their internal layout and system vulnerabilities. Engineer Martinez consulted her scanner, mapping the ship's internal structure as they moved. Captain, I am reading massive power conduits running through this section. Looks like their main engineering control is 3 levels down. Jenny, find us a route that avoids their internal sensors. We want to move through this ship without triggering any alerts. Navigator Walsh studied her portable mapping device. Sir, there is a maintenance shaft system that runs parallel to the main corridors. We can move through the ship without entering areas covered by active sensors. Outstanding. Carl, watch R6. These automated defense systems might activate if they detect intruders. The team moved deeper into the Devourer vessel, navigating through maintenance tunnels and service corridors. The ship's interior was a maze of mechanical systems, all designed with ruthless efficiency. There were no crew quarters, no recreational areas, no provisions for organic life at all. This is definitely a fully automated vessel, Martinez observed as they reached the engineering section. No life support systems, no crew facilities, just weapons, engines, and manufacturing equipment. They emerged into a vast chamber filled with pulsing energy cores and complex control systems. The engineering section was the heart of the Devourer ship, containing the power plants that fed its weapons and the computers that controlled its movements. Found it, Martinez announced, indicating a central control console. Main processing center is right there. Give me 5 minutes and I can shut down their entire propulsion system. Do it. Jenny, find their navigation core. We need to understand how they coordinate fleet movements. Walsh consulted her scanner and pointed toward a secondary chamber. Navigation systems are through that access tunnel, sir. Carl set monitoring charges on the secondary systems. I want to know how quickly they can recover from internal damage. The Coalition observers could only watch external sensor readings as the Nightfall team worked inside the enemy vessel. 23 minutes after docking, their instruments registered massive internal explosions rippling through the Devourer ship. Turner's team retreated to Nightfall as the enemy vessel's systems began cascading failures. The boredock disengaged cleanly, sealing the hull breach behind them as the human ship glided away from its target. The results were spectacular. The massive Devourer vessel, which moments before had been a functional warship, now drifted helplessly in space. Its engines were offline, its weapon systems were dead, and its communication arrays were severed. Incredible, Admiral HFY murmured, studying the sensor readings. They disabled a Dreadnought-class vessel in less than 30 minutes. Admiral, Captain Turner reported over the communication channel. Target is neutralized. All systems offline, but the hull remains intact for your technical teams to study. Captain Turner, report your casualties. 0 casualties, sir, though Engineer Martinez did scrape her elbow crawling through one of their maintenance shafts. The Coalition officers exchanged amazed glances. In their military experience, disabling a vessel of that size would have required hours of bombardment and resulted in its complete destruction. The humans had accomplished the mission with surgical precision and no losses. Captain, Admiral HFY said carefully, this was impressive, but that vessel was derelict. How will your methods work against active enemy ships with functioning crews and defenses? Turner's smile was visible through his helmet visor. Admiral, that was not a demonstration of our tactics. That was a demonstration of our restraint. What do you mean? Paula, show them what Nightfall can really do. Engineering Chief Martinez activated additional systems that had remained hidden throughout the demonstration. The Coalition observers watched in shock as weapon systems emerged from concealed hull compartments, revealing firepower that dwarfed anything on their own vessels. Advanced particle cannons extended from hidden bays, while missile launchers deployed along the ship's flanks. Energy readings from the human vessel suddenly spiked to levels that should have been impossible for a ship of its size. "Sir," Dr. Venth gasped, checking her instruments again. "Their firepower readings are off the scale. How is this possible?" "Doctor," Turner replied, "when we said we fight dirty, we meant it. Nightfall and her sister ships are not just boarding vessels. When the situation requires it, we can engage enemy fleets directly and win." Admiral Zexhi's scales shifted to deep blue, a color that among his people indicated profound respect mixed with fear. "Captain Turner, your vessel carries more firepower than my flagship." "Yes, sir, but we prefer not to use it unless necessary. Destroying enemy ships is wasteful. Capturing their technology and learning their capabilities is much more valuable." The demonstration concluded with Nightfall resuming its innocuous appearance, weapon systems retracting into hidden compartments. To Coalition sensors, it once again looked like a simple reconnaissance vessel rather than a predatory warship. "Admiral," Turner continued, the first real battle came sooner than anyone expected. 3 days after the demonstration, Coalition sensors detected a massive Devourer fleet advancing on the Threshold system, home to 12 million civilians spread across 3 mining worlds. 15 enemy ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their dark hulls reflecting the light of Threshold's twin suns. The lead vessel was a dreadnought nearly 4 miles long, accompanied by cruiser-class ships that bristled with weapon systems. Traditional Coalition response would be to evacuate the civilians and establish defensive positions in another system. Instead, Admiral Lisa Carter's Void Fleet arrived to hunt. 12 human ships materialized from hyperspace in a loose formation that looked almost casual compared to the rigid geometry of Coalition battle groups. Each vessel appeared small and harmless next to the massive Devourer fleet, but appearances could be deceiving. Captain Martin Hughes aboard EDS Shadow Strike took point as mission commander. His navigator, Beth Andrews, had already identified the enemy fleet's command vessel and was plotting approach vectors that would minimize exposure to defensive fire. "All ships, this is Shadow Strike Actual," Hughes broadcast on the squadron frequency. "Primary target is the Dreadnought at Grid 77. Secondary targets are the escort cruisers. Remember, we are not here to destroy their fleet. We are here to disable it and learn from it." Captain Turner's Nightfall led the second wave, accompanied by EDS Phantom under Captain Diana Ross and EDS Wraith, commanded by Captain Chris Morgan. Their mission was to eliminate the support vessels while Hughes dealt with the command ship. Admiral Zexhi watched from his observation post, transmitting tactical data to the human ships while staying out of their operational area. Coalition doctrine called for massive fleet engagements with hundreds of vessels, but the humans were attacking 15 enemy ships with only 12 of their own. "This is madness," muttered Commander Thex, his crystalline body flashing nervous orange patterns. "They are outnumbered and outgunned." Dr. Kayla Venth studied her sensor readings with scientific fascination. "Actually, Commander, if you analyze the weapon-to-mass ratios, the human ships carry significantly more firepower than their size suggests." The engagement began unlike anything in Coalition military history. Instead of forming battle lines and exchanging long-range fire, the Void Fleet ships scattered in all directions, approaching the enemy from multiple vectors simultaneously. Shadow Strike approached the enemy dreadnought at high speed, its stealth systems making it nearly invisible until the final moment. Navigator Beth Andrews threaded the ship between massive weapon turrets while Weapons Officer Troy Bennett systematically disabled point defense systems with surgical precision. "Targets. Defensive grid is down by 60%, Bennett reported. "They cannot track us at this range." "Outstanding. Gary, prepare the bore dock. I want a clean penetration into their command section." Engineering Chief Gary Wells initiated the docking sequence. "Bore dock charging, sir. Targeting their central command structure, based on the intelligence we gathered from the derelict." The ship shuddered as the specialized docking system made contact with enemy hull. Within seconds, Captain Hughes was leading his boarding team into the mechanical nightmare of the Devourer vessel's interior. Meanwhile, Turner's Nightfall had positioned itself in the middle of 3 escort vessels, using their own formation against them. The human ship's superior maneuverability allowed it to stay within their defensive perimeter, making it impossible for the enemy ships to target it without risking hits on each other. "Paula, I need maximum power to forward weapons," Turner called out as his ship danced between enemy vessels. "You have got it, sir," Engineering Chief Martinez responded. "Rerouting power from non-essential systems. All power to weapons and engines. Carl, target their propulsion systems only. I want them dead in space, not destroyed." Weapons Specialist Johnson nodded grimly. "Understood, sir. Targeting engines and maneuvering thrusters." The battle raged with deadly efficiency. Coalition observers watched in amazement as the small human force systematically dismantled the Devourer fleet without destroying a single enemy vessel. Each Void Fleet ship engaged multiple targets simultaneously, using tactics that seemed impossible by traditional standards. Captain Diana Ross aboard EDS Phantom had penetrated the formation of 2 cruiser-class vessels, using her ship's advanced jamming systems to blind their targeting computers, while her crew disabled their weapon systems one by one. "Their targeting systems are offline," reported her weapons officer. Switching to engine targeting, "We will have them immobilized within 3 minutes." Captain Chris Morgan's Wraith had taken a different approach, using its stealth capabilities to appear and disappear around the battlefield like a ghost. Each time it materialized, another enemy ship lost critical systems to precision strikes. Inside the enemy dreadnought, Captain Hughes and his team moved through corridors designed for mechanical beings. The ship's interior was a maze of automated systems and artificial intelligence nodes, all connected to a central command brain. "Found their command center," Hughes reported over his communicator. "Beth, I need you to interface with their navigation systems. Gary, locate their main processing core." Navigator Andrews connected her portable computer to an enemy terminal, her fingers dancing across holographic controls as she penetrated their security systems. "Sir, I am downloading their fleet coordination protocols. This is incredible data. Gary, how are we doing with that processing core?" Engineering Chief Wells had located the ship's artificial brain, a massive computer system that controlled the entire vessel. "Sir, I can shut it down permanently, or I can install monitoring software that will let us track their communications." "Install the monitors. I want to know what these machines are planning." The engagement lasted 47 minutes from first contact to final shutdown. When the fighting ended, 15 Devourer vessels drifted helplessly in space around Threshold System. Their engines were offline, their weapons were disabled, and their communication systems had been compromised, but their hulls remained intact. "Admiral ZXHY," Captain Turner reported as the engagement concluded. 15 enemy vessels neutralized with 0 coalition casualties. Mining operations can resume immediately, and your technical teams will have intact Devourer ships to study. The Coalition Admiral stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The readout showed disabled but structurally sound enemy vessels floating throughout the system. In his military experience, neutralizing 15 enemy ships would have required at least 50 coalition vessels, and resulted in heavy casualties on both sides. "Captain Turner, what are your casualties?" Admiral ZXHY asked. "0 fatalities, sir." Engineer Wells twisted his ankle during the boarding action, and one of our weapons specialists has a minor burn from an overloaded power coupling. Admiral ZXHY's scales shifted through several colors before settling on deep blue, indicating profound contemplation among his species. "Captain, in coalition military doctrine, an engagement like this would have required massive fleet support and resulted in the complete destruction of all enemy vessels." "Sir, with respect, that is because coalition doctrine assumes the enemy gets a vote in how the battle is conducted." "What do you mean by that?" Turner's expression grew predatory. "Admiral, we do not give them a vote. We do not engage in fair fights or follow rules of honorable combat. We identify their weaknesses, exploit their limitations, and eliminate their capability to resist." Dr. Venth had been analyzing sensor data from the engagement. "Captain Turner, your tactical approach seems to focus on disabling rather than destroying enemy vessels." "Why?" Lieutenant Commander Rachel Stone answered from Nightfall's bridge. "Doctor, destroyed ships tell us nothing. Disabled ships can be studied, their technology analyzed, and their tactical patterns understood. Every engagement teaches us more about Devourer capabilities and weaknesses. Admiral HFY was beginning to understand the fundamental difference between coalition and human military philosophy. You fight wars not just to win battles but to gain advantages for future battles. Exactly, sir. This engagement gave us intelligence on Devourer fleet coordination, ship design, and artificial intelligence systems. That information will make the next battle easier, Captain Hughes reported in from the captured dreadnought. Admiral, we have downloaded their complete tactical database. These machines have been collecting information on coalition fleet movements, ship designs, and battle tactics for months. They have been studying us. Admiral HFY realized with alarm. Yes, sir, but now we are studying them. And humans are much better at adapting enemy tactics than machines are. The implications were staggering. The coalition had been fighting a defensive war, reacting to Devourer attacks and trying to minimize losses. The humans had turned each engagement into a learning opportunity, gathering intelligence and improving their capabilities with every battle. Admiral, Captain Turner continued, the Devourers have been winning because they adapt their tactics based on what they learn from each engagement. But they are machines. They follow patterns and algorithms. And humans do not follow patterns? Turner's smile was sharp as a blade. Sir, we make... 6 months after the first human ships arrived, the war had transformed completely. In the Coalition Strategic Command Center aboard Nexus Prime, Admiral HFY studied reports that would have seemed impossible a year ago. 7 star systems had been reclaimed from the Devourers. Over 200 enemy vessels had been neutralized or captured. Coalition casualties remained minimal. Dr. Kayla Venth stood before an assembly of Coalition military leaders, presenting analysis that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare. Representatives from 12 species listened as she explained the revolutionary changes in their tactical situation. The human approach defies every principle of conventional military doctrine, she began, displaying holographic battle maps throughout the chamber. Their vessels are individually outnumbered in every engagement, yet they maintain a success rate of 96%, with casualties that are statistically negligible. General Thax of the Crystalline Dominion flashed confused light patterns across his transparent body. How do they achieve such impossible results? Admiral Lisa Carter appeared via hologram from Earth, her image projected into the center of the Coalition assembly. She wore the blue uniform of Earth Defense Force, with insignia that marked her as the Supreme Commander of Human Military Operations. Generals, Admirals, with your permission, I would like to explain human military philosophy, she said. Admiral HFY gestured for her to continue. Around the chamber, alien faces showed intense curiosity mixed with respect. You asked Earth for soldiers, Admiral Carter began. Every species in the Coalition defines soldiers as ground troops who march, carry weapons, and fight battles in predictable formations. But humans define soldiers very differently. She activated a tactical display showing Void Fleet formations engaged in complex maneuvers around enemy positions. These crews are soldiers. Each ship is a military unit. Each engagement is a coordinated operation conducted by trained professionals who live, work, and fight as an integrated team. Captain Alex Turner materialized alongside Admiral Carter, transmitted from his ship in the outer systems where Void Fleet continued hunting Devourer stragglers. Sir, if I may add to Admiral Carter's explanation, Turner requested. Please do, Captain. Coalition doctrine focuses on destroying enemy vessels through superior firepower and overwhelming numbers. Human doctrine focuses on defeating enemy capability through superior tactics, intelligence gathering, and precision operations. Turner highlighted several successful engagements on the tactical display. When we board a Devourer ship, we are not trying to capture territory or destroy equipment. We are performing surgery on their operational capacity. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Stone joined the briefing transmission from Turner's bridge. Sirs, the psychological impact cannot be ignored. The Devourer collective intelligence has modified its tactical algorithms in response to human operations. Admiral HFY leaned forward with interest. What do you mean, Commander? Sir, the Devourers are learning to avoid systems where Void Fleet operates. Their artificial intelligence now rates human vessels as disproportionately dangerous and allocates excessive resources to counter threats that do not match their programmed parameters. Dr. Venth consulted her analysis reports. Commander Stone is correct. We have observed Devourer fleets retreating from positions they could easily hold, apparently because they detected the presence of human ships. Admiral Carter nodded approvingly. Exactly, Doctor. We are not just winning individual battles. We are forcing the enemy to fight our kind of war instead of their own. The briefing continued as coalition officers began understanding the revolutionary approach that had turned the tide of the war. Void Fleet did not seek glorious victories or heroic sacrifices. Each engagement was calculated, precise, and designed to achieve maximum strategic effect with minimum risk. Captain Diana Ross of EDS Phantom joined the transmission to report on recent operations. Last week, my crew disabled a Devourer manufacturing facility by infiltrating their central production core. Traditional tactics would have required destroying the entire complex, eliminating its production capacity permanently. Instead, she continued, we captured intact manufacturing equipment that Coalition engineers are now studying. The intelligence we gathered has already led to improvements in our own ship designs. Dr. Venth processed the implications with scientific fascination. Captain Ross, you are telling us that human tactics not only neutralize immediate threats but also provide strategic advantages for future operations? Exactly, Doctor. Every engagement teaches us more about Devourer technology, tactics, and limitations while simultaneously degrading their operational capacity. Admiral HFY finally understood the fundamental difference. You do not fight wars to destroy enemies. You fight wars to solve problems, Captain Turner smiled. Now you're beginning to understand human military doctrine, Admiral. But why do you call your forces Void Fleet? Asked General Kava, the blue-skinned commander from the Centauri Republic. Admiral Carter's expression grew serious. Because they operate in the tactical void between conventional military concepts. They are not fleet vessels or fighter craft. They are not traditional Marines or naval personnel. They exist in the operational space that other military doctrines cannot address. And, Captain Turner added with predatory satisfaction, because when enemy ships encounter Void Fleet, they are about to enter the void between functional and non-functional status. The strategic situation continued improving as Coalition forces, working in coordination with Void Fleet squadrons, reclaimed territory that had been lost months earlier. The Devourer advance had not just stopped, it had reversed completely. Captain Martin Hughes reported from the reclaimed Kappa sector, where his crew was investigating abandoned Devourer facilities. Admiral, we have discovered something significant. The enemy artificial intelligence appears to be withdrawing resources from forward positions to establish defensive strongholds in deep space. What does this mean strategically? Admiral HFY inquired. Sir, it means they are afraid of us. For the first time since they awakened, the Devourers are operating from a defensive rather than offensive posture. Dr. Venth reviewed intelligence reports from across the theater of operations. The pattern is consistent throughout all combat zones. Devourer forces are consolidating rather than expanding, apparently in response to continued losses from Void Fleet operations. Admiral Carter addressed the Coalition Assembly directly. Leaders of the Galactic Coalition, when you asked Earth for soldiers, you expected warriors who would charge into battle with courage and honor. Yes, Admiral HFY replied, and your people have exceeded every expectation, but not in the way you anticipated. You asked for soldiers, and we sent you something far more effective. Admiral HFY's scales rippled with colors that indicated profound respect mixed with wariness. What did you send us, Admiral Carter? We sent you hunters. 1 year after the first desperate plea for help, the Devourer threat had been effectively neutralized across 15 star systems. Coalition losses remained minimal, while enemy capabilities had been systematically dismantled through precise operations that captured technology, gathered intelligence, and eliminated threats without wasteful destruction. In the final scene, Admiral HFY visited Captain Turner aboard the Nightfall as the Human. Ships prepared to return to Earth. Coalition technical teams had learned more about advanced technology in 12 months than they had discovered in the previous century. Captain Turner, on behalf of the Galactic Coalition, I must apologize, the Admiral said as they stood on Nightfall's bridge. Turner looked puzzled. Apologize for what, sir? We asked Earth for soldiers. We expected brave warriors who would fight with honor and courage in the traditions of civilized warfare. Admiral, My crews did fight with honor and courage, yes, but not in the way we expected or understood. We asked for soldiers who would help us fight the Devourers according to established military doctrine. Turner raised an eyebrow. And instead, Admiral Zexhi's scales shifted through complex color patterns that conveyed emotions no human language could adequately express. Instead, you sent us predators who taught the galaxy that sometimes the most honorable way to fight is to refuse to fight fairly. The conversation was interrupted by Communications Officer Steve Baker. Captain, we are receiving departure clearance from Coalition Command. All Void Fleet vessels are cleared to return to Earth. As the sleek black ships prepared to leave Coalition space, Admiral Zexhi reflected on how completely the war had changed. The Coalition had learned that military doctrine was not about following rules or maintaining traditions. It was about adapting to threats and finding solutions that worked. The humans had not just saved the Coalition from the Devourers, they had revolutionized the very concept of how civilized species could defend themselves against enemies who recognized no limits. Admiral, Turner said as he prepared to depart, when you first contacted Earth, you asked for soldiers who could fight in ways your species could not. Yes, and you provided exactly what we requested. Sir, with respect, we provided what you needed, not what you thought you wanted. Admiral Zexhi watched through the observation ports as the Void Fleet ships formed departure formation. Their hulls reflected starlight like the scales of hunting animals, beautiful and